In the polished corridors of Al Mansour Private Medical Center in Abu Dhabi, where the air carried the faint scent of antiseptic and expensive perfume, Elena Santos first met Sheikh Tariq bin Hamad Al Najjar. It was late 2021. Tariq, then 48, had arrived not as a patient but as a concerned husband. His wife, Layla Al Najjar, lay in the oncology ward on the 12th floor, her body weakened by an aggressive lymphoma that had resisted every treatment. Elena, 32, was one of the senior oncology nurses on the night shift. Born in a small barangay in Iloilo Province, Philippines, she had come to the Gulf 7 years earlier on a contract that promised financial stability for her widowed mother and 2 younger siblings. She was known among colleagues for her quiet competence, steady hands, and the way she listened, really listened, to patients who had little time left. Layla was different from the usual high-profile patients. Despite the private suite, the fresh orchids delivered daily, and the discreet security detail outside her door, she refused most visitors. She spoke softly, mostly to Elena. Over months of infusions, pain management, and late-night checks, a fragile trust formed. Layla would ask about Elena's family, about the beaches back home, about dreams deferred. In return, she shared fragments of her own life: a marriage arranged at 19, a son who studied architecture in London, a husband whose business empire spanned real estate, shipping, and energy, but whose presence in the room grew rarer as her illness deepened. One humid October night in 2022, with monitors beeping softly and the city lights glittering beyond the window, Layla called Elena close. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Elena," she said, pressing a small, sealed envelope into the nurse's palm. "If Tariq ever remarries, open this. Promise me." Elena hesitated. Hospital policy discouraged staff from accepting personal items from patients. But Layla's eyes held an urgency that felt beyond protocol. "I promise," Elena replied. Layla died 3 weeks later. The funeral was private, broadcast briefly on local news as a dignified farewell to the wife of one of Abu Dhabi's most prominent businessmen. Elena attended the service from a distance, standing among the hospital staff in the back rows. She kept the envelope unopened in the bottom drawer of her dresser in her shared apartment in Al Reem Island. Life moved forward. Shifts continued. Remittances continued. The envelope remained sealed. Tariq reappeared in Elena's life unexpectedly in spring 2023. He came to the hospital to thank the oncology team personally. He carried a modest bouquet for each nurse, white lilies for Elena. In the staff lounge, away from the others, he spoke quietly. "You gave my wife peace in her final months," he said. "I never forgot that." What began as polite gratitude evolved slowly. Coffee after a long shift. A drive along the Corniche to clear her mind. Conversations about loss, ambition, second chances. Tariq was charming in an understated way, never ostentatious, always respectful. He spoke of loneliness after 4 years of widowhood, of wanting to build something new. Elena, cautious by nature, found herself drawn to his steadiness, his stories of rebuilding after setbacks, his quiet generosity toward her family back home. By late 2024, they were married in a private ceremony at a seaside villa in Ras Al Khaimah. No lavish headlines, no paparazzi. Just close family, a few trusted friends, and the soft crash of waves. Elena wore a simple ivory gown, Tariq a tailored thobe. She resigned from the hospital with a generous severance package he arranged. They settled into his residence in the exclusive Emirates Hills, a modern compound with gardens, a pool, and views of the desert beyond the city. For the first 18 months, the marriage appeared content. Elena adapted to a life of comfort she had never imagined: private drivers, international travel, charity events where she represented foundations supporting migrant workers and cancer research. Tariq's son, now 28 and living mostly in Europe, visited occasionally and treated her with polite distance. Friends from her nursing days, especially her closest confidant, Marisol, another Filipina nurse, warned her gently about cultural gaps, about power imbalances. Elena smiled and said she was happy. But cracks appeared in small ways. Tarek preferred to handle finances himself, even for her personal expenses. He asked her to surrender her old Philippine bank cards for simplicity. He monitored her phone usage, not overtly, but enough that she noticed. When she questioned it, he spoke of security concerns, of past threats to his family. She accepted it, telling herself it was part of his world. Then came the letter. In February 2026, a formal notice arrived from the Abu Dhabi Judicial Department. It informed Elena that she was named in a sealed probate amendment to Layla Al-Najjar's estate. The document had been filed years earlier, but placed under judicial seal, to be opened only upon Tarek's remarriage. The condition had been triggered. The court hearing was scheduled for March 15, 2026, in a closed session due to the sensitive nature of family estates. Elena arrived with a lawyer recommended by Marisol. Tarek sat across the chamber, flanked by his legal team, expression calm but eyes guarded. The presiding judge, a stern woman in her 50s, opened the proceedings by breaking the seal on Layla's supplementary will and accompanying affidavit. A USB drive, medical records, bank statements, and a notarized letter were entered as evidence. Layla's voice, recorded months before her death, filled the room through speakers. I leave the bulk of my personal assets, properties in London, Geneva, and Abu Dhabi, valued at approximately AED 180 million, to a trust for oncology patients from low-income migrant communities, Layla stated clearly. My husband, Tarek, is aware of this intention. However, over the last 3 years of my illness, I discovered he diverted funds from my separate inheritance, funds I received from my father's estate before our marriage, into his corporate accounts without my consent. These transfers totaled AED 92 million. I did not authorize them. The recording continued. I was too weak to confront him publicly. I feared for our son's future. So I documented everything. Statements, emails, forged signatures on transfer orders. If Tarek remarries, the trust activates immediately, and the court is instructed to investigate the diversions as potential fraud. My nurse, Elena Santos, holds the key evidence. She does not know what it contains. She was kind to me. Protect her. Gasps rippled through the small gallery. Elena felt the floor shift beneath her. Tarek's lawyer rose quickly. This is an unsubstantiated allegation from a terminally ill woman under medication. My client denies any impropriety. These were legitimate family transactions. But the judge had already queued the next file, scanned documents showing transfer orders bearing Layla's signature, signatures that handwriting experts later confirmed were inconsistent with her known examples from the final year. Bank logs showed the funds routed through offshore entities linked to Tarek's companies. A timeline emerged. The diversions began shortly after Layla's diagnosis, when she was least able to oversee her affairs. The court did not rule that day. It ordered a full forensic audit and appointed an independent trustee to freeze the disputed assets pending investigation. Elena left the courthouse in silence. Tarek approached her in the corridor. This is a misunderstanding, he said quietly. Layla was confused toward the end. You know how the drugs affected her. Elena looked at him, really looked, and saw the man she had married, and the man Layla had feared. I kept a promise, she said. I didn't know what was inside. That evening, she moved out with only a suitcase and the clothes she wore. Marisol took her in. Days later, the media reported the unsealing in restrained terms. Family estate dispute surfaces in high-profile remarriage. No names were published due to privacy laws, but whispers spread quickly in expatriate and business circles. The investigations stretched into months. Auditors confirmed irregularities in at least AED 78 million of the transfers. Tarek maintained the moves were made with verbal consent during Layla's lucid periods. No criminal charges were filed, yet, but civil proceedings began to recover the funds for the trust. Elena returned to nursing part-time at a public hospital, choosing anonymity over luxury. She established a small scholarship in Layla's name for Filipino oncology nurses pursuing advanced training. Tarek's son quietly distanced himself from his father's businesses. In the end, the court's unsealing did not destroy Tarek's empire, but it dismantled the illusion of a second chance built on secrets. Elena never remarried. She carried Layla's final promise not as a burden, but as quiet proof that kindness, even when unwitting, can outlast deception. Sometimes the most powerful revelations come not from confrontation, but from a sealed envelope opened years later, in a courtroom far from the sick room where it began.